If the journey is the destination, you're already there and you're going to be there tomorrow. Why do we constantly find ourselves wanting for more? They're enjoying all the steps along the way. They're enjoying where they're at. Even though, like I said, on paper, they're the exact same results. Their experience, the way that they live through those things is completely different. I'm going to move forward and make this decision. Oh no, you may not want to do that because of this and this and this. There's a lot of analysis. You've heard the phrase, and paralysis by analysis. And basically by cutting out all that extra noise and just allowing myself to just act, spontaneously act, move, that leads to much higher productivity. Welcome to today. Whenever you're listening to this, it's today, and it's a good day. This is another episode of the Lifestyle Practice Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Derek Williams. Excited to be with you today, and I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I'm going to give a quick preface to today's episode that basically, if you're here on the podcast for like specific content as far as your dental practice and stuff, today's episode is maybe not for you. Today's episode is me just kind of rambling, sharing a little bit of where I'm at in life, some of the recent developments and areas that I've grown. So in the past, before we were doing video, I would have just closed my eyes and talked and spoken to the microphone. But today we're doing video. So I'm going to try and keep my eyes open for those of you that are watching to remain a little bit more engaging. So it's been a year. It's been a year on the road. I sold my practice in May of 2023, and a month later, we closed on selling our house. June 7th, 2023 was our first day hitting the road, and we basically have spent the last year mostly in the eastern United States. We went north through Arkansas, Missouri, and to Minnesota, and then started heading east through the summer months. So we're along like the northern border of the country in the summer months. And then in the fall, we were in the northeast and started coming down the coast. It was beautiful, a lot of fun, great memories and time. And we spent the winter in Georgia and Florida, and then started making our way back to Texas. And the last couple months, we've been in West Texas, New Mexico, Colorado. Today, I'm in Wyoming, and we'll basically keep heading north, and we will, if you can kind of picture what that looks like in your mind, you can picture an infinity symbol, right, like this, and put it on the United States map. And we've basically completed that circle on the eastern United States, and now starting that loop on the western United States. So we originally were just planning on an eastern loop, and then settling in the western United States, most likely in Utah. That's where both of our families are from. And then we were thinking, oh, then we'll have territory left that we can explore. A few months into it, we were like, hey, we're actually really enjoying this quite a bit, and so let's extend. So we decided to go for another year. So that's where we're at. It's been a fun journey. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the thoughts and processes, what it's been like, some of the ups and downs of the experience and things that I've learned. One thing right off the bat that I want to share is that has been interesting is how fast our minds can adapt. I remember a few years ago, I read an article on Mr. Money Mustache, and he was talking about this idea of slowing things down, slowing life down. And the idea of the article and what he was writing was basically like, how can you get more out of life? right? Like a lot of us get on autopilot, and when our brains go on autopilot, that's when we have the perception of time moving very quickly. Time goes fast, and so in the sense of like ROI, how much life experience can you get out of your time on life? If you're on autopilot, a lot of the time you're not getting as high of an ROI. I don't know if that makes sense to those of you listening, but uh, it's basically just that idea that we only have a finite time to be alive, and if you can kind of slow time down, theoretically, you're getting more out of the experience. And one of the ways that he suggested to do that was to just change up your daily routine. He said, any of you that have read, he's like, bike to work. I actually never did that. I rode my one wheel to work once or twice, not very many times. But he talked about other ideas like even just drive a different route than you've gone before. Go to a different store than you normally go to for something. Um, Play if you're playing a sport. Take a different approach to it. Be on a different team. Be in a different league. Basically, the idea is like change things up, right? Because if you'll notice and think back on your experiences in life, a lot of times when you go through some different kind of experience, you're not really on autopilot anymore. You're having to like be very engaged. I mean, think of like the first time you did an implant or the first time you did a filling, and like how engaging it was, and how like you just had to be very present, thinking of every step along the way. And then your 100th one, how was that different? It's very, very likely that your mind is a little bit more on autopilot. It's muscle memory. You're just kind of following those movements, and so time passes more quickly. And it's the same for the rest of our life. That has been a very interesting idea to me over the years, and it was really interesting to me thinking about this experience, thinking like, oh, okay, we're going to be on the road, we're going to be somewhere different all the time, and so life is going to go more slowly. And in a sense, that's partially true. I mean, week to week, things are very different. I can't get used to any specific restaurant. I can't get used to any specific grocery store or products that I usually buy. I can't get used to a certain gym. There's just so many things that are changing all the time. And so, in the beginning, you know, you start to like, oh wow, I've got to like put in my phone GPS like every single place I go. And what's so interesting, and finally coming back to my main point of the idea of what I said, how quickly our minds can adapt. Within about, I would say, 2 months, the 2 month mark is when it started to just feel like, okay, this is our routine in life. This is what life is like. So it's almost like the change and the diversity of everything became the new normal. And my wife and I, last night, we were walking around. We have this really fun habit where generally, like, I will make dinner or she will make dinner, and then the kids do the dishes and the cleanup, and we go walk. We'll take 20-30 minutes and walk together and talk about our thoughts and feelings and kind of what we're going through. And so last night we were talking and sharing this, and we were just saying, wow, can you believe it's been a year? It's just like, it's kind of mind blowing that we've been traveling for that long. So we've been on the road for a year now, and it's interesting because before we started doing this, and we were kind of thinking about it and planning ahead, we went to a gathering of people that live full time and travel in their RVs. It was in Florida. It was in 2020. It was the week before the pandemic like really broke out. And I remember being there, and there was some people that had been doing it for like 5 years, 10 years, something like that. And it was like almost incomprehensible. Like, wow, how could they have done this for so long? And now we've been doing it a year, and it's like, oh yeah, I could totally see how you could do this long term. It makes it makes total sense, because now it's just to that point in our lives where it's just normal everyday life. And so in order to kind of live that same principle of what I was talking about with Mr. Money Mustache, is I have to find new ways to get out of my comfort zone. And, some of those for me have been, a big one has been coaching with Steve Hardison. I fly out to Phoenix every couple weeks, and that's really pushed me to grow in a lot of ways that I hadn't before. And I'm actually going to talk about that in my next episode. It has to do with a lot of kind of like starting out coaching with him, and basically like, what are my limiting beliefs about myself? What are my greatest fears? And so I'm excited for that episode, because it'll be relatively personal. Like, I documented my limiting beliefs, my greatest fears about myself, and I'm going to share that all with you guys, and how I have worked through a lot of them, and how I'm continuing to do that. So I'm excited for that. A point that I wanted to make, Andrew Huberman did an interview with David Goggins recently. It was, let's see, I guess it was in January, so it was earlier this year. But in that, we talked about willpower and pushing through and different things like that. And if you don't know who David Goggins is, you can read. He's got a couple books out. I've read both of them. Justin and I also recorded an episode a couple years back, and it was our review of his first book, and like, what was impressive to us, like what our thoughts were about him. But he's basically like, he's an ex-Navy SEAL, and just like really pushed himself, like the mental capacity with physical pain, physical endurance. Like, he is the go-to guy for like just basically torturing himself for 100-mile runs and pull-ups without end. So what was really interesting about that interview was that Andrew Huberman talked about this certain part of the brain. It is the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And in this interview, Andrew Huberman shared that they've done some research, and it sounds like this is relatively new. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex is a part of the brain, and in individuals who tend to do a better job at pushing themselves out of their comfort zone and doing harder things consistently, have a larger anterior mid-cingulate cortex. That portion of their brain is larger. They have done studies and found that obese people have a smaller part of that brain. Basically, the idea or the thought process is that, if you have self-control and you are, restricting yourself, you're doing hard things and not just allowing yourself to kind of do whatever you want, that part of your brain strengthens. Another interesting part is, and this is kind of like is connecting the points with what I'm talking about with my life right now, is that Andrew Huberman talked about. He said, okay, as an example, he used the cold plunge. He said, if you at first, when you get in the cold, it's going to be really hard and very uncomfortable. And that has the potential to grow that portion of your brain, because you're doing something that you don't want to do. But eventually, you could continue to do it long enough, you will likely get to a point where it's not difficult anymore. Like, you're just so used to doing it, you're back on autopilot. And at that point, even though you can continue to do that, that portion of your brain can actually get smaller. You could argue and say, hey, what's the big deal with this portion of the brain? Like, we don't know that much about it, or, is it even like beneficial to have a big part of that brain versus not? Yeah, all valid points. But it's just interesting, I think. And the point is that it's not, the point of all that is not just to learn to do one hard thing. It's learning to develop habits to get yourself consistently out of your comfort zone. That is the way that we grow. I still remember a conversation with my oldest daughter. We were at a state park in Blackwater Falls. It was called Blackwater Falls State Park. I don't remember what state it was on the top. Oh, it was West Virginia. beautiful, beautiful park. They had a nice lodge there. The leaves were like peak time of the year, so it was just gorgeous. And they had like an indoor swimming pool. Um, they had like a fitness room. Really surprising, compared to most state parks. Like it kind of blew me away. But at one point, I was in the pool with the kids, and I was kind of sitting there, and my oldest daughter and I were talking, and I was, we had finished a workout, and she had done a workout with me. She did legs, and I was pushing her on the leg press at one point, and it was really fun to just see her like go all out and pushing herself and struggling, and she just felt so good about herself afterwards. And so I was talking to her in the pool, and I was saying, man, isn't it interesting that most of the time in our lives, like some of the times that we feel the best about ourselves is after pushing ourselves through something that is very hard or difficult, something that we could potentially not enjoy at all, something that could be even, painful. And it's just a very interesting idea to me, and a good reminder to continue to put myself outside of my comfort zone, continue to try and grow. So much of my journey in the last year has been, you've probably heard me say it, is learning that there is no destination. It's all journey. And what I've recently been rephrasing this as is that the journey is the destination. If you're in the thick of it, and if you're, wherever you're at, like if that's true, if the journey is the destination, you're already there, and you're going to be there tomorrow. Like, so why do we constantly find ourselves wanting for more? And I believe it's because of what Eckhart Tolle says. He says the ego wants to want more than it wants to have. Many people have gotten in the position in life where they are pushing themselves, and they have an idea of something that they want to reach, and eventually they reach it, and they find that they're not satisfied. They're not super content. I was talking to a client last week about this idea, and he just closed on his practice, and we're talking about this idea that the journey is the destination. Celebrate all along the way, and don't get in this habit of continuing to just seek for the next step over and over and over. Just allow yourself to live right now and enjoy where you're at. And I pointed that out to him after some of the language, the way that he was talking and stuff, and he said, oh, he's like, man, it's really interesting to hear you say that, because you're right. He's like, I've been doing that most of my life. He's like, when I was in high school, it was just, okay, I want to get into this college. Once he got into the college, it was, okay, I got to get these grades, and I got to prepare, I got to get into dental school, and blah, blah, blah. He gets there, and then the whole time during dental school, it's like, okay, I just want to graduate, and then that's when I'll have made it. I'll be a dentist. He gets there, he's working and thinking, okay, I'll really have made it when I buy a practice. He finally closed on his practice, this last week. And then the thought, do you think the thoughts are going to be any different? No, it's the same. He closes on the practice, and then, the thought is, okay, I'll have made it when I reach this much in production, this much in income. And, so we were talking about this, and, he realized that that's been going on in his head. And so our conclusion was, hey, go celebrate. Go have a good time with your wife. Go do something special to commemorate this time. It's a fun time of life. And the reality is, you can compare two different scenarios where in either scenario you achieve the same results. Okay, graduated from here, reached this much income, this blah blah blah. You can say, okay, on paper the results look exactly the same. And in one of those scenarios, you can have a person that is constantly wanting for more, wanting for the next step, always looking forward to that. And then the other person can experience something where they're just enjoying the journey. They're enjoying all the steps along the way. They're enjoying where they're at. Even though, like I said, on paper, they're the exact same results. Their experience, the way that they live through those things is completely different. And that's been something that I've learned the last few years, and again, much more in the last year. I'm learning to take things day by day, week by week, and enjoy where I'm at. And one thing that's so surprising is that it's made me more productive, more productive, more productive than when I was planning out and thinking, okay, if I want to get here by this point, then I got to do this and this. All of that is very important, and it's good to do that. But it's very interesting and a very strange experience to live in a headspace where I'm not doing as much of that, and I'm ending up to be more productive. And why? It's because I've eliminated a lot of these self-limiting thoughts. Instead of, thinking, okay, I'm going to move forward and make this decision. Oh no, you may not want to do that because of this and this and this. There's a lot of analysis. You've heard the phrase, and paralysis by analysis. And basically by cutting out all that extra noise and just allowing myself to just act, spontaneously act, move, that leads to much higher productivity. So I've gotten kind of a decent ways into this podcast, and I don't want to, get off into the weeds too much, but I did kind of want to share some of those ideas and how I've grown in that mindset. Just a few quick examples of what that looks like and how that's kind of played into my life. The first example is with coaching. In the past, I felt a little bit of guilt and responsibility with clients to get certain results and to prove my value in some way. And a lot of that was the critical thoughts that I had about myself. It's interesting because when that happens, it ultimately leads to a less efficient, a less productive, and less meaningful relationship that actually ends up leading to inferior results. I'm sorry if you're a client that's listening to this that's like, oh man, he coached me 3 years ago, and man, now he's saying he wasn't as good then. And that's true. Every year I get a little bit better. I found that in dentistry, every year I got a little bit better, and the same thing happens to me in coaching as well. Every year I enjoy it a little bit more. But what I'm talking about is this idea of enjoying the journey, right? The journey is the destination. And when I can feel that and live in that headspace when I am with a client and we're making plans and talking about things, it just helps me to enjoy the process, to enjoy where we're at, to really appreciate this client and their energy and what they bring to the table, and support them in their goals, and to love their journey for them, and to just want to be supportive in whatever way I can. As you're listening, you can think about this with your own patients. How many times have you been in a consult and you feel responsible for your patient's reactions to things, right? You don't want to talk about diagnosing or recommending treatment for something because you're afraid of how they will respond. If they respond in a way where it's a big obstacle with money and they can't believe that you're presenting a plan that would cost this much, and you just like clam up and you feel all this anxiety, you're taking on their emotions and their response to things, and that's not the way to live. We can't control other people's thoughts and opinions. So why do we try? Or why do we feel responsible to do that? And so, like I was saying, ultimately, it ends up leading to a better relationship. And so with, for you as a dentist, if you can respect that person's journey, if you can get to the point where you can make a recommendation and you can feel really good about it, but you can also respect that patient's ability to make a decision for themselves and support them in that, that's a peaceful way to live. And this is the crazy thing. When that happens, your case acceptance is going to go up. And that's what I'm finding with clients as well, as far as the coaching side of things, is that as I've learned to appreciate what the client brings to the table and what their goals are, and to enjoy the process in working with them, to appreciate clients being willing to open up and be vulnerable and to talk through things, man, that's such an enjoyable process. And the cool thing about it is that, it just leads to incredible results. So I just find myself transforming in that way, and it's a lot of fun. Another quick example is my relationship with my children. So just kind of bear with me and kind of think through this a little bit. Before, if I am goal oriented or result oriented with my kids, and I think, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend this time with my daughter, and I want her to feel, I want her to feel like I love her and appreciate her, and I want her to learn from this and this and this, like I come up with this list and I go into that time that I spend with her. Ultimately, I end up not living in the moment, and I end up thinking, what is she getting out of this? And I end up thinking, all of these things, it's critical thoughts. And then if I perceive that she's not getting those things out of it, I start to get a little bit irritated. Have you ever been in a relationship or a conversation where, you go into it in that way, and then when that person doesn't respond the way that you hoped that they would, they don't appreciate your efforts, they don't appreciate your love, your concern, whatever for them, then you find yourself, man, I just wanted to help. That's all I wanted to do. And what does it do to the relationship? It doesn't help. It just weakens it. It ends up with, frustrating feelings and stuff like that. So compare that. If I go in and want the results on the other end, if I can go into that time with my family member and I can say, man, I'm excited for this. I just want to enjoy my time with them. I just want to increase how I feel about them during this time. Okay, then we go into it with that kind of experience. I'm genuinely having fun, and I'm respecting their journey. I'm not taking the responsibility on for how they feel and how they process and think through things. And guess what? When I actually approach it in that way, because I'm just focusing on myself and thinking, about things in that regard, they actually end up feeling more loved and appreciated than if I went into it with the exact goal of making them feel loved and appreciated. So play around with that. It's a very interesting idea that you can use in a lot of different ways. Use it with your staff, with your patients, friends, family. It's a really cool experience, and it all kind of stems from, like I said, live in the moment. The journey is the destination. Lean into this process, and that can be very liberating. And so anyway, that has been one of my biggest lessons of this last year. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being with me during this time. It's been a fun experience for me to be able to kind of share and have this outlet. Today's episode, I did make some connections to dentistry, but by and large, everything that I talked about is very much almost like a journal entry of what I've been going through. So it's humbling that I have a space where I can share this. It helps me to, feel good about my growth and my process, and to have a community that I can share it with is very humbling. So thank you for that. I'm going to wrap up there. So as always, feel free to reach out. Let me know if you have questions or thoughts, things you want me to address. Feel free to reach out to any of us, Matt, Steve, or Derek at thelifestylepractice.com. The main ways that we work with dentists are one-on-one, the mastermind group, and then we also have our online TLP Academy. And you can find information about that on our website, thelifestylepractice.com. We're in the process of updating that to make it a little bit more beautiful and user-friendly as far as understanding how we work together. But we're also happy to answer questions as you guys are going through things as well. So take care, keep crushing it, keep pushing, and enjoy the journey along the way. Take care, everyone.